I call this the King Ranch edition. Bet you didn't know Banshee had a King Ranch edition, huh? King Ranch by Ford. This is to match your Ford King Ranch. This one's come in with a clutch that is gone wonky. I'm going to pull this one down. I'm going to do a Doom port, mill the head for pump gas. The shifter's all loose down here. It says it's stuck in gear. I'm guessing the ball welded itself to the rod from him hot rodding around. We're going to tear into it, and I'm going to show you exactly how it looks inside when this goes wonky. It's got 130 pounds of compression, so it tells me it doesn't need a rebuild. Did the stator already. It did a 130 on a 17.5, so the stator's good. Let's pull it apart. This is going to be hard in this tight area. I got too many bikes in here. You know, that's not good. Virgin clutch, you don't see those too often. Throw all these rubbers away, always. When you start making any kind of power, these rubbers get chewed up and spit out. They'll look like little pellets. So get rid of them. They were to soften the blow in the engaging of the clutch so it doesn't feel jerky. You want a jerk. Looks like the nut was put on, but the lock was never bent over. That allowed it to back off. If you don't have a lock or you're too cheap to buy a lock washer from Yamaha, use red Loctite. It'll do the same thing. We'll put a new one on. We'll just go through everything and make sure everything is all right. Basket's a little loose. And I would suggest a basket since we are porting and decking. We'll do a few upgrades on this baby. You can see that half clip upper to lower case is missing, like always. I don't know why those things disappear. This is one of the aftermarket Banshee kits. These are aftermarket cylinders. Somebody forgot to put the water plugs in them. And never run the pistons that come with these. This thing will fall apart right quick. Run your water plugs. He has it on +4, like everybody that runs pump gas does. This thing would have came apart. +4 on an all stock configuration is probably safe on 91, maybe, but good God, these things fly apart. Sometimes the threads are gacked up inside of this, even if the flywheel looks real nice. Somebody flattened the threads a little bit, so I've got this holder tool I use to keep the flywheel in place. This is also good for torquing it down if you don't have a pneumatic torque setting. And I just make sure this goes all the way down, because you want this threaded as far as possible. If it's not threaded all the way down, it's very fine threads, they'll just rip out. Just a flat piece of steel stock with a couple Allen bolts welded to it. I have this side done the same way for different sizes on different things. Stator, 3 10mm bolts holding the stator plate on. Last one doesn't want to come out of the stator plate. Woodruff key that keeps the magneto flywheel aligned and in time. Whoa. This wasn't put together right. Cone washers behind the water pump gear turner there. So this goes on the outside, like this. I'm sure as a first timer putting this together, that is a key that looks like was cut in half or reground. The right size, it's just a little smaller. I wonder what happened to it. They did put silicone in here, though not the kind I would use. I'm almost half tempted to say this was the copper Permatex. We're not going to use these again, so I'm not going to worry about them. Pop the little circlips out. You can tell these pistons weren't run very long. This coating that all the amateurs always rave about, it wears right off. You can tell it didn't run very long because after a couple hours, this stuff is gone. So he was having a hard time with it. We have a case bolt missing. Just filled up with silicone. That'll hold it. Washer's missing. There's a washer that goes under this to keep the dirt from getting inside, or help to keep. And the seal also does that. This seal was already out. It had pushed out. A lot of little things not right on this motor. We're gonna take it and make it good. Shift forks and everything look okay. No foreign objects in there. Let's start the cleanup. I thought this had one missing top case bolt. It had two. They just filled them with silicone. Can you see here and here? So when I got it cracked open, one hole was nice and clean. It was just missing a bolt. I could thread a bolt right in, fine. This one had one broken off in it. Didn't have enough to grab and turn out. It was pretty flat. So you got to use extractor kits like this, and you got to drill a hole. This Roby extractor kit tells you what size drill bit to use with what size extractor. Now, the tough part, the drill bit. Don't buy any of those drill bits at Home Depot. The zinc or whatever they coated, they're all crap. You gotta buy like from Lakeshore Carbide. You have to buy like tool hardened drill bits. It's the only ones that'll work. I mean, you can make the other ones work. You'll go through a few of them to drill out and they'll take forever. These ones cut like butter. And once you get the hole drilled, this drill doesn't even have a key in it, so it'll catch and spin. That's how sharp these are. A non-key drill will cut right through those bolts. Then you just get an extractor. And you got to be careful with these because they will break off very easy. There we go. You can see the heavy indentations on the eccentric there. We're going to adjust that to see if we can get a more lift off the dowel pin in that star. I'm going to modify that star too. We're going to cut off all those high tips. 17. Looks perfect. Now I'm going to do the star. Sometimes these are stuck on there pretty good, and it'll take a little heat because there'll be glue here and here, and a little heat and a pair of pliers, and you can pull them up by holding that down. Got to get the spring tension down off it. Star is finished. That's neutral. Each indentation is a gear. First gear, second gear, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. We don't cut this one because it never travels from sixth back into first. You have to go back down, right? 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you cut off the top of all the other ones. Leave that one alone. Take the spring, hold it down. Make sure you have the dowel pin in and it just lines right up. We'll put it in first. Really doesn't matter what gear it's in when you assemble. I'm sorry, that's second. Washer on, holds the dowel pin, see? So if you don't put that in, dowel pin will fall out. We're just going to port the top case to match the port I'm going to put on these China cylinders. So everything gets a nice free flow from the crank valley. All the fresh fuel and air will come up. These ears will be wider to match the wider stance on the ears here. So everything flows up real nice with no ledges or pinch offs or you know, steps. What I'd like to do is just use a Cub style base gasket. This is a .020 20 thousandths paper gasket, and I just set it down on the top of the case. I draw it with a fine Sharpie around each of the ears. I lift it up, tight snug fit. And this is the base gasket I'll use to assemble the motor. And then I take and just start flaring it out to the line. Very easy. There, ears flared out, just nice and gentle, nothing crazy, just a nice even contour up to meet the bottom of the updrafts of the China Banshee barrels. I'm going to stick all the seals in. They push in with just your thumb. There's the shift shaft. Like always, got to stick all the half moons in first. Make sure all those clips are there. Remember, there's only 3 of these, and you just set them all in the lower case. There we go. Seal in the rib. Rib goes right in the case. Remember, make sure those springs don't fold over this side out. Lines up again, rib in the case with the rib on the back of the side of the seals. This one's got its own full clip all the way around. Just line up the slider with the shift fork there. This one's got 2 to line up and 2 clips, small and large, and then seal that goes behind the sprocket. Make sure the doesn't get flipped or pinched and the spring's not popped off. Oh, I got that one in there a little crooked. Every once in a while you get one that doesn't want to cooperate. Just get a socket the same size as the seal and tap it around until it seats. Washer and spring. I always just preload this in. Get that behind the little square there, the leg of the spring. The mouth of the spring up around the perch. Alright, gonna make a pretty bead with my favorite 3-bond, 1211. Gonna do these while they're here, since there was no water plugs in this. There we go, water plugs inserted. Now let's get this case closed up. Double check. And put a little right on these bearings so they don't spin, just for protection. Not a ton. Sequence. Whoa, get back in your spot. I'm going to put on this case clip here. It didn't have one, Loctite, but it's a $14 part. I always feel better running all the OEM stuff that it came with. There we go. Now my favorite. Give it a little stretch. Okay, here we go. See if this one will pop in good. Oh, this one's tight. Nope, she's not gonna play nice. Just kind of give it a stretch all the way around as I push in. There we go. Make sure that spring doesn't get flipped over or any part of the seal is folded under. Oh, let's get some 3-bond in there. Loctite. We're gonna get a new billet basket put on this thing. So we're gonna take this old one and grind it out. You know how it's done. You grind the tops of all these off. Just grind them down even with the plate. You'll get a new plate with your new basket, so don't worry about grinding the plate. Just grind them all down and then center punch them out. You get yourself a grinder like this with the grinding wheel, and you just grind off each rivet. Then you go around and you center punch each rivet with a good size sledgehammer and punch. I've done them all except this one, and I'll just show you the pressure it takes. Not much. And you don't need to beat it all the way through. You just need enough to get the backing plate loose. This is the piece you keep. All this goes in the trash. New billet basket. If you're still on a stock clutch, make sure you throw all these O-rings away. This is a stock style clutch. Fiber. If you got these nipple steels, just line it up with the finger on the basket, outside basket, and then move it every other one as you put them on. I'm doing one stock spring, skipping, stock spring, skipping, stock spring. So I got a stock spring on all the arrows of the pressure plate. And then I'm going to do drag springs in the other. This is an OEM style clutch, so it doesn't have a whole lot of grip with those OEM springs. So it's not going to be a brutal motor, about 65 horsepower. So we'll put some drag springs on it to hold that OEM style clutch. Gonna line that arrow up. It's actually pretty close to how I like it. Just a little bit on the stator side there. Yeah, I like that. All right, this is a dial indicator. And this is how you check the runout on a crank. Just make a perch of some kind. Make sure that it is attached and stable. It's not moving. You don't have to do it inside the case. I'm just doing this for reference. This has already been put together, but I thought I would show you how it is done. Usually you just run it between a couple of V blocks. You get it set up, you zero it out. It's almost zeroed out. You get the reference point there. And then you just spin it. This one has about 1/1000th, 100,000ths play. It'll take 3 before it's out of spec. So this one's good. We won't touch it. Way within spec. Time to put the OEM stator back in. This one's got a cracked housing around it. This plastic doesn't matter. Stator tests well. You can always electrical tape that up. .2 foot-pounds of torque on these. I keep the timing almost factory with my porting in the dunes. It's a lot of load on the motor. You don't want to put a hole in the piston, and it will detonate and do that. Get the Woodruff key in. Get the flywheel on. .18,000ths on the pickup cap to flywheel. Just double checking it. It was already set once before. Open your pistons up, get your rings out, take your rings. There is no up or down on Wiseco rings on how you insert them. Any way works, but I always just keep the numbers on the up. Just put them in your bore, square them up about a ½ inch down or so. Take a feeler gauge, get the minimum. These come out perfect, about 10,000ths. I've done them all. Make sure when you measure them, they stay on the right side. These 2 rings measured in this bore. These 2 rings measured in this bore. I already put the clip on one side of the piston and seated it, and then I just slide it in. Do the same on both. The clip is in there. Make sure they're squared up and set in correctly so they don't pop out. Again, I do in up, doesn't really matter. Any side with printing, I like up for reference. Walk it around the dowel pin, the opening center with the dowel pin in the ring gap area on the piston. Okay, here comes the fun part. Time to dune port these. I'm going to put a dune port on these. And going to mill this stock head. I'll show you what it looks like after I'm done. That should come out. No, though that won't affect anything, even if it was there. This will be gone when we mill it. Have everything all drawn up. Gonna start cutting. This is where the magic happens. Time to get this motor assembled. The King Ranch build. There's the head machined and blasted, all cleaned up to run pump gas. Here's the cylinders. I fill them with water, let them sit overnight, just to make sure that the newly installed water plugs are not leaking. So fill it up with water, let it sit overnight, and then check if there's any leaks. Did you get to see the port job on this? This has the dune port. This is the King Ranch build. I'll slide these on. Compress the rings. Slide it right over the top. Installing the intakes, the Chariot reeds. I like to 3-bond both sides of the gaskets because this area is prone to leakage. I lay a little ultra copper on both sides of the stock style gasket. I just kind of spread it around with my fingers, make sure that all areas get a little bit, all contact areas get a little bit of the silicone. And I take and I lay the stock head that's been machined. Last step before we throw it in is a leak down test. I haven't filmed this yet. This is a simple kit you can buy through Harbor Freight. You just plug up all your holes. Plug up your intakes, put at least one spark plug in. The compressed air goes into the other spark plug hole. You plug up your exhaust. You fill it with about 6 pounds of air, 6 to 7, and you see if this bleeds off at all. Bleeding off would be going this way. And I don't like any bleed off in my motor, so I make sure they are tight and they don't move. We haven't started the motor yet, but we're going to take a compression test just to see where it's at before it's started. Got carbs on it now, so I will hold the throttle wide open. About 140 psi. Okay, we're going to do a squish test right here. Piece of solder in line with the wrist pin. Turn this bad boy on, get it to inches. This thing's ready to rock and roll. Let's try and start her up. Okay, let's give it a try. Throttle open. Lube up the cylinders a little bit. Get a little fuel in there. I'll let it run for 5 minutes or so. Sounds good, no leaks yet. Don't see anything backing off. That's what you want to look for. You want to look for nuts and bolts backing off, maybe something you forgot to tighten up, something vibrating loose, and leaks. Leaks are the most important thing. You don't want any leaks. That wraps it up for the King Ranch Edition Banshee. She's running good. Did a couple miles on her, and we're going to turn her over to the owner. Next up is the one right behind it. I don't know what's wrong with it. Looks like some pieces and parts are missing, but look for that video next.